15% of every advanced accelerator chip Nvidia ships to China now goes to the United States Treasury. 0% went there before 2025. That gap, from nothing to a direct government cut on a private company's export sales to a specific country, is the reading this script traces, along with what moved it, what it signals to Beijing's planners, and whether the instrument holds or grows. The metric is the government revenue claim on controlled semiconductor exports, the share of each transaction's value extracted by the Treasury per sale of the Nvidia accelerator chip, the H100 successor known as the H200, to Chinese buyers. Then, 0% because no such instrument existed. The prior framework offered only two states, a permit or a denial, with no financial take in between. Now 15%, attached at the moment the Trump administration cleared the H200 for export to China following sustained lobbying by Nvidia's chief executive. 0% then, 15% now. 15. That is not a tariff in the conventional sense. A standard tariff applies at the border to goods coming in, levied on the importer. This instrument runs the other direction. It attaches to an American company's outbound sale to a specific country on a specific class of chip and routes the payment to the Treasury. The legal container it sits in, whether an executive order, a Treasury regulation, or a novel condition attached to an export license, had not been fully published at the time reporting emerged, which means the enforcement mechanism and the definition of transaction value remain open. The rate appears documented. The base it applies to is still being defined. That uncertainty is its own reading. When the base is unclear, the government retains discretion over how much 15% actually means in dollars collected. A fee on gross contract value yields a different number than a fee on the chip's listed price minus logistics and integration costs. The instrument is real. Its yield is speculative. Before this structure existed, the architecture of American export control on advanced logic chips was a binary valve, open or closed. The policy was built around capability thresholds. Keep Chinese artificial intelligence infrastructure below a certain computational ceiling by controlling which chips cross the border. That logic is a denial logic. Its goal is for the sale to fail. A percentage take on cleared sales is an extraction logic. Its goal is for the sale to clear, because a sale that does not clear pays 0%. Those two goals are not compatible inside the same instrument. A government that earns 15% on each transaction has a structural interest in transaction volume. A government running capability denial has a structural interest in volume going to zero. The fee does not split the difference. It resolves the tension in favor of extraction, while carrying the language of security review forward into the announcement. The mechanism that produced this outcome began with industry pressure. Nvidia's chief executive engaged the administration directly, arguing that a blanket denial on H200 sales to China surrendered the market to domestic Chinese alternatives without materially slowing Beijing's artificial intelligence build-out. The argument moved the administration from denial to clearance. The Treasury fee was attached at the moment of clearance, which means the lobbying campaign that reopened the market also provided the occasion for the fee to appear. That sequencing matters. The industry case for access gave the administration the political cover to say yes, and the fee gave the administration something to show the constituencies that wanted extraction rather than pure market accommodation. The result is a proof of concept that has nothing to do with chip manufacturing. It demonstrates that a restricted market can be held closed, waited on while industry organizes pressure, reopened at a price, and the price itself becomes a revenue line. The 15% is the demonstrated clearing rate for a reprieve. If that rate holds, it is also the floor for the next negotiation. A drawbridge raised to stop crossings does not become a bridge when it is lowered. It becomes a toll booth. The traffic moves, but the party controlling the gate now has a revenue model. That is the structural shift documented in the delta here. The barrier went from a closed gate to a priced crossing. The change is not in whether crossing is possible. It is in who collects at the bottom. Beijing's planners are reading the same instrument, and they are reading it differently than they read a denial. A denial is binary. The chip is unavailable, so the planning question is whether to wait for a policy reversal or accelerate domestic development. A toll is continuous. The chip is available at a price set in Washington. The price can move at any time, and it can expand to other controlled chips whenever political conditions produce another lobbying cycle. The optimization problem changes. A firm or a state agency can model a toll road, build a budget line for the access cost, and run a parallel calculation on when domestic supply becomes cheaper than the toll. A firm cannot model an embargo that may flip on lobbying cycles of unknown duration. Predictable extraction is a different threat than unpredictable denial. And a threat you can model is one you can build against. That is why the fee may accelerate Chinese domestic semiconductor programs even as it permits imports. If the instrument signals that access is priced and the price is controlled in Washington, then achieving domestic supply is not just a hedge against a ban, it is a hedge against an escalating toll. The 15% today may be 25% in a later negotiation. Domestic supply removes exposure to that variable entirely. The supporting readings on this are qualitative, because the hard data on China's domestic accelerator chip output remains thin and comes largely from single-firm estimates or state-adjacent reporting that has not been independently audited. What is observable is the pattern. Domestic accelerator programs have attracted increased state backing during the same period that export controls tightened, and the fee structure, if it becomes durable, extends the economic rationale for that investment even after the ban officially lifted. There is a third caveat on these readings worth stating plainly. The claim that this fee has no modern precedent in American export administration reflects legal commentary and reporting from 2025. It has not been tested in court, and prior export control regimes did include cost recovery mechanisms and fee structures in narrower contexts. The categorical novelty of the instrument may be real, but it may be narrower than the initial framing suggests. What appears genuinely new is the combination: a named private company, a named destination country, a named product class, and a percentage of transaction value flowing directly to the Treasury as a condition of the export license. Each of those elements has appeared in other instruments. The combination in that form is the novelty. The readings here are more reliable on what the instrument is than on what it yields or whether it survives. Structure is documented. Revenue projection is speculative. Legal permanence is untested. And the definition of the base the 15% applies to is still a blank in the published record. The metric started at 0. It is now 15%. That move did not happen because Washington concluded that China should have access to the H-200. It happened because industry pressure found a deal structure that let the administration say yes while attaching a number, and a number on a government ledger carries its own gravity. The delta points toward a world where chip access is not solely a security valve calibrated by threat assessment, but also a revenue instrument calibrated by what the market will bear and what the Treasury will take. When denial and extraction pull in opposite directions inside the same policy, the fiscal logic tends to win over time, because denial costs the government nothing and earns nothing, while extraction compounds. The ban became a toll booth. Toll booths do not close. They raise rates. Watch the rate through the end of 2026. If 15% holds without a legal challenge or a formal revision to the underlying instrument, the structure is durable and every other controlled chip has a price waiting for the next lobbying cycle. If the rate moves up before then, the extraction model is already indexing. If a legal challenge succeeds and the instrument is struck down, the binary valve comes back, and the question becomes whether industry pressure is enough to reopen the market a second time without the fee. Any of those outcomes is a dated reading worth tracking. That is the next delta on this metric. If you want that reading when it lands, subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel reports the delta, not the press release.